Welcome. Like I said, we are in our next episode of Innovative Women in Leadership. Today, we're going to be talking about lessons in entrepreneurship. I'm so excited to dive into this, but before we get started, I want to invite you to join the conversation. If you do join the conversation on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, whatever your social media of choice is, please use these hashtags, hashtag I will, Innovative Women in Leadership, I will with one L, or hashtag TEVE for Thoughtexchange virtual events. We like to call this must-see TEVE, and today certainly is. So use those hashtags if you join the conversation on social media. If you are also joining us, we want to invite you to use the chat box. Amelia, our lovely program director, of course, is monitoring that. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, what you're hoping to learn from today. But keep in mind, guys, that we're going to go through the interview portion of the virtual event for the first 20 minutes or so. And then we're going to invite you to join the conversation using Thoughtexchange. So any burning questions that you have, you can absolutely put them in the chat box, or if you want to, wait and put them in the Thoughtexchange, and we'll be sure to address them with our speaker today. Which leads me to the introduction of our lovely speaker today. According to Forbes.com, Alice Heiman is among the world's leading experts in the complex sell. She is the founder of Alice Heiman LLC, a leading sales consultancy for mid-sized companies, strategizing with sales leadership to grow sales. She is originally from the widely known Miller Heiman Group. Heiman recently co-founded Trade Show Makeover. That sounds fantastic, which is now a leader in preparing companies to close more deals from their investment in exhibiting at and sponsoring trade shows and events. Welcome, Alice. We're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics.
Okay, great. When we dive in with Alice, guys, this is what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the definition of entrepreneurship, what it encompasses, how you can cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset, and then some tips on things you can start doing today, whether you're in an organization or you own your own business. What can you do to embrace this entrepreneurial mindset? So those are the things we're gonna talk about with Alice today. Before we jump in, though, I want us to do our 5-star questions for our 5-star leaders. It's this fun little thing that we do to get to know you a little bit better. Alice, are you ready for your 5-star questions?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Beach or mountains?
Oh my gosh. Okay, beach. I live in mountains, but I love the beach.
All right. I love that. Maybe it's because you see the mountains every day, so the beach is more, who knows?
I love them both.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Road trips or air travel?
Air travel.
Okay. In-person meetings or virtual meetings?
In person.
All right. Salty snacks or sweet tooth?
Salty.
That one, no question on that one. Okay, I like it. And then Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter.
All right. Yeah. So you're pretty active on Twitter then, huh, Alex?
Yes, I am. I still haven't exactly figured out how I want to use Instagram. I use it for fun, and especially because my nieces and my grandchildren are on Instagram, and so I want to be on there with them.
Yeah.
And for sporting events at the University of Nevada, where I teach and where many of my family members go to school and have gone to school. So I use it for that, but not so much for business. Twitter I use for business, and it's really fun and I love it.
That's great. Okay, I'm so excited. Now we've gotten to know you both personally and professionally, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm really excited about this topic that we're covering today in Innovative Women in Leadership, of course, because we've talked to a lot of sales leaders, but we haven't really talked about entrepreneurship and really what it means. Talk to me a little bit about how you define entrepreneurship, because I've heard you say before, it's not just limited to a business owner. So talk to me about what it means to you.
Well, I think the traditional thinking around entrepreneurship is that someone gets an idea and they start something, and it doesn't have to be a for-profit, but typically when we think about entrepreneurship, we think about people founding and co-founding companies that are going to grow and scale. But really there's many kinds of entrepreneurs. And when I think of entrepreneurship, I like to think about it as a way of thinking more than ownership of something. It's more the ownership of this mindset that allows you to operate differently in the world. So when you think about who's an entrepreneur, I don't like to leave out all the people who don't own a business, because there are many very entrepreneurial people who are not the owners of companies. Now, I know that people who fund and invest and do these things when they're thinking of entrepreneurship, and when we teach entrepreneurship at college, which I do, by the way, teach at the University of Nevada, and I teach entrepreneurship, we do think about owning a company. But I like, especially in sales and with salespeople, but anyone at a company, I want them to think about, what is it that sets you apart? What is this type of thinking you can do? And entrepreneurial thinking is really about taking ownership, whether or not you are the actual owner. It's about innovation. It's about doing something different, taking a risk. And so anyone can be an entrepreneur inside of any organization, for profit or nonprofit. And sometimes I hear people call them intrapreneurs because they're inside of an organization. It's really more of a mindset, and then the way you conduct yourself.
I love that. Okay, so I love it because you're right. Traditionally, we think of entrepreneurs as owners, right? Founders, the owners of these ideas. But really, what you just said, and I want to just highlight it again, is it's entrepreneurship is really a way of thinking, of taking ownership of a mindset. I love that idea. And I think that that really can inspire anyone to feel like they're an entrepreneur in their organization, whether they're an individual contributor or they are, in fact, the business owner. So talk to me a little bit about how this mindset you've used personally in your life or professionally. Talk to me about how adopting this kind of mindset has helped you.
Well, I think I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset, because when I look back into when I was young, I was always leading things, like starting things. Let's go, build something or do something. So I feel like I kind of had it from the beginning. In high school, I was always leading and starting things and just starting up things. So I have that entrepreneurial mindset. I have started up many organizations, for profit and nonprofit, for myself, as well as I've helped many companies start up. So I feel like I live in this entrepreneurial place, which is, again, it's a place where there's some innovative thinking, there's ownership. Like, it's not, if you want it done, figure out how to get it done. If you don't know how to do it, learn how to do it, or find somebody else who does. Lead that charge. Think of a better, newer way to do it, something that will be faster, quicker, easier. So that innovative piece is there, and I think so important. So in my daily life and in my business, I'm always trying to think of better ways to do things, how to take ownership of things, make it easier for other people, and grow. Keep growing. And that, I think, is part of the entrepreneurial mindset as well.
So I'm so fascinated by this because I think a lot of people are probably, especially leaders in organizations, whether they're actually the owner or not, feel like, oh yeah, me too. I was born with that. I've got that in me. That certainly resonates with me as you're talking about, Alice. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, especially as a professor on entrepreneurship. Do you feel like most people who have it are born with it, or do you see people who feel like they aren't born with it, that they're able to kind of cultivate it throughout their professional career?
I think it comes naturally to some people. It's like, when you say entrepreneur, it's just who I am. I can't help myself. But I do believe that people can become more entrepreneurial. And for example, in sales, which is, the world I live in, I work with companies who need to accelerate their sales. They're owner-led, investor-backed, high-growth industries, and they have no choice. They have to accelerate their sales quickly. And so when I just take a salesperson, I want them to be more entrepreneurial, because if they are, they will succeed at a faster pace, and they'll blow away their quotas and do really well. And I tell them, act like this is your business and you own it, your territory. This is what you're in charge of. So whatever part of your world you're in charge of, take ownership of that. Don't wait around for other people to tell you what to do or to figure it out for you, or just, waiting for them to tell you the next thing. Take charge of it. And in that way, be the entrepreneur, be the owner of your space, and innovate with inside of that. Just because every other salesperson is doing X, oh, they're just sending emails and making phone calls. Try something new, try something different, be bold. So you do have to be willing to take a bit of a risk, but it can be a calculated risk. You can do your homework and plan. You can say, well, what are the best sales organizations in the world doing besides calling and emailing? And figure that out. And then try that within your own world. Maybe sometimes you do have to get permission when you work inside a big company, but there's so many things you can do that are creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial without asking anyone. It's more about looking around you and saying, here I am inside of this. Mm-hmm. What can I do? How can I take charge of this? How can I innovate this? And so if you're the owner, of course, you need to do that. Although I will say this, there are a lot of business owners who are not entrepreneurs.
Okay, so
they are business owners.
Okay, I love this. I think that that's great.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to dive into that. I think you're absolutely right. I think really it's just a matter of going, whatever you own it like it's yours. Whether that's your region, your territory in sales, whether that's, you're the department head of diversity and inclusion, whether you're, the manager of product management, whatever your box is, own it like it's your business. And then you start thinking of yourself like an entrepreneur, and then you can approach it with more innovative ideas and ways to grow it in ways that maybe you aren't approaching your work. I love that idea. Yes. So then talk to me then conversely about these business owners who don't have that mindset. Have you run across them? What has been your experience with them? What are some of the challenges they face when they don't own their box, even if that box is an organization?
Yeah, well, I don't work with those people. Because they're not, so they own a business, and a lot of times they just want the business to pay them enough to live, and they're not engineering anything new or innovating or really even growing very fast, because what they did maybe was left a corporate job and just want to have a better lifestyle. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. If you know that that's what you want to do, that's great. So you find a business and buy it, or you start a business and it's just going to be more of a business that will support a lifestyle you would like to have. It will bring you the money that you need, and it will, keep your mind busy enough, and you don't need rapid growth. You're not going to take on investors. You're just going to run your business. And I think that's lovely. And I applaud it. And I know people like that. And I think that's fantastic. And they can be very successful. But they're not entrepreneurs, because what entrepreneurs are doing is growing something, innovating something, taking risks. Again, they may not be the owner, but they may work for a startup. They may work for an investor-backed company where you have to keep innovating and growing, but they want it to be rapid and exponential, and they're willing to risk something to get that. And entrepreneurs that own their company, most of them do have investors if they're trying to scale, so they only own a portion of their company now, but that they know is better than not having the investment that can just really help them spring ahead of everybody else. So it's really, again, back to mindset. There's nothing wrong with owning a company and having it make good money and being, satisfied with that lifestyle. And perfect, great, do that. But most entrepreneurs are going to grow something to sell it, right? They want some gain. And because of that, they're going to take some risk.
Mm-hmm. So everything you're saying makes total sense to me. And I think I'm speaking for the attendees when I say that this is inspiring and exciting. What you're describing, growing something, taking risks, being innovative, so much of that requires a level of confidence, I think, in either the place that you're at within an organization, or as potentially a new business owner. Talk to me about how you cultivate that confidence that's necessary to be innovative, to take the risks necessary to keep that entrepreneurial mindset. I think that for people who are born with it, it's probably just comes naturally. But if they aren't born with it, how can they get that chutzpah that's necessary to approach things in more of an entrepreneurial mindset?
Well, I can speak for myself about that, and I'm not sure how other people do it, although I've heard, from other entrepreneurs what they do and how they do is pretty similar. But I think the confidence comes from years of doing it, right? So if you're brand new, that's hard, right? Because you don't have years of doing it. That's why I do tell people who want to be an entrepreneur and own their own business, I tell my students, go work for somebody else who does it and be entrepreneurial inside of their company and learn and grow with them, and then take that knowledge and go off and start your own thing. Now, don't go compete with them and try to take all their customers. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about learning and growing, for a certain period of time. But confidence comes with knowing, right? So, and part of that is just having done it enough times that you know how to do it and it works. The other part of it for me is learning. I always have to figure out, what is it I need to know next, right? What things do I have to shore up, review, tune up, and then what new information do I need? And what do I need to know really well? And then also it's knowing what isn't worth my time and that I should find another expert, right? So I have confidence in the people that have the knowledge. I find people who are expert at what they do, and that makes me feel more confident because I can refer to them and get information from them. So I have practice, what I'm doing and do it over and over again. I keep learning, and then I surround myself with people. I have a mastermind group. I've been in this particular mastermind for about 6 years. So I have other experts who I can bounce my ideas off, and they can feed them back to me and tell me how that sounds, and is that too big of a risk? Is it not big enough of a risk, which is usually the case. We think too small and we need to think bigger. So we need others to bounce those ideas off. So if you want to be more entrepreneurial and you need more confidence, then you've got to just get really good at the thing that you're going to be offering out to your constituents. What is it that you offer? How good are you at it? Why should I choose you? Why are you better than somebody else? So you've got to get really good at it. And that comes from practice and learning and working with others. So sometimes when you're starting, you have to do some work for people for free to prove that you can do what you say you can do. And that's a risk when you do stuff for free. So, or a low price, or in exchange for, I always say, don't do it free, do it in exchange for. So I'd love to do this for you because I'm just starting up and I want to prove it out. In exchange, would you give me testimonials, a case study, some videos, some photos, whatever it is that makes sense. Right. But I think that confidence is an important thing. You don't want to show up to a sales call trying to sell what what you have without that confidence. And so when you're just starting, you've got to do a lot of things to build the confidence up.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really great. And I think that brings us to our next point, really. You've talked about, what do I need to know next? What information do I need to really glean from the experts around me? These are the ways that, what can I give in exchange for my learning and my development so that I can build this confidence? I think I want to dive into this last point before we open the conversation up to our attendees. What can people start doing today, either as a business owner or an individual contributor, to kind of approach their work with this entrepreneurial mindset as soon as they're done with this virtual event?
Well, the first thing I would do is find a quiet space and maybe a journal, and I would just really sit and think about what you want. What does your life look like right now? What should it look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? At what point will you want to stop working or change your pace? Just really think forward into the future and just think about how things will be, what kind of environment, how you'll feel, what you want to be doing with your time. And you won't have all the answers, and it doesn't have to be something specific like, oh, in 5 years, I'll be working for XYZ company. No, right. Just I'll be working in a company that has this type of environment, that sells these type of products, that I will feel like the leader, or my company will grow to be the leader. And in 10 years, I will have sold my company and I'll have enough money to invest in other companies or travel or do book combinations. So think about what you want your future to be. Think about how hard you want to work, really, because having your own company, whether you are a business owner or an entrepreneurial business owner, is a lot of work. Yeah. And there's no such thing as a 4-hour work week. Sorry. There's no such thing as, just, oh, I'm going to work my 40 hours and go home. And even if you do that for someone else, you're probably not going to be the one who gets ahead. I'm not saying to work yourself to death either. Get your exercise in, eat healthy, sleep plenty, enjoy your family, do all those things, but then think about what you're willing to do to get what you want. You've created that future vision. It's going to take more than just status quo or good enough to get to this place where you want to be. So first decide. And you know what you may decide? You may decide that you really rather just be an employee and work for a company and work your way up in that company. Or maybe you decide you just would like to be an individual contributor. My brother, who is a fantastic salesperson, the 300% quota kind of salesperson everybody wants. And they've asked him to manage salespeople many times. And his answer is no, I am an individual contributor and that is the job I want to do. So it's really good to know that. And that gives you confidence. I know that this is what I want to do and I feel good about it. All of it's good. All of it's good. Just be doing the thing you want to do. That's the only time it's not good, is when you feel stuck or you're not doing what you want to do. That's when it's not okay. But if you choose, to do whatever job for however long, and that's a choice you made consciously, then do the best you can at that and enjoy that. But if you want something bigger, then think about what that is and what's it going to look like and how's it going to feel. And then build a plan to get there and find some help. The first thing is just find another group of people who are already doing it and join that group and ask them how it is and get ideas from them.
That is such great advice. I feel like I speak for all the attendees when I say these are amazing things that we can do. I think that we don't spend enough time being self-reflective, thinking about what we want to do, what the vision of our life is, and then what we're willing to do to get there. These are questions I don't think we're asking ourselves enough. So I so appreciate that advice, Alice. Now I want to open up the conversation to our attendees here today. So Amelia is going to drop the link to the exchange in the chat box. And then I'm going to share my screen with you guys so that you can see this QR code. All you have to do is either click on the link that Amelia has shared, or take your mobile device, open up your camera, zoom in on the QR code, and something will pop down. Click on that pop down and it'll take you right into the exchange. You don't have to sign up with your email. All you have to do is just agree to the terms of use. It'll take you right into the exchange. The third way to join, of course, is through thoughtexchange.com/join. Enter the 9-digit code you see here on the screen. Our question that we're asking today is, what thoughts or questions do you have for Alice? We've covered a ton, but we really want to hear from you now. So there's 3 steps that you're going to do once you get into the exchange. You're going to share your thoughts or questions. You're going to write your thought or question to this particular question. What burning questions do you have for Alice, and all of the advice that she's given us and how you can apply it to your life. Once you've shared, you'll then go into the star step. In the star step, guys, that's where we talk about like kind of our magic sauce. That's where that happens. And that's where you rate the thoughts and questions of others. It's similar to Uber or Amazon. If you really come across a question or a thought that you're like, absolutely, I got to hear from Alice about this one, give it a 5. If you come across another one, you go, yeah, she covered that. I'm really not interested in diving into that one during the discussion portion, give it a 1, and anything in between. And then after we've given you a few minutes to participate, we'll go through your top thoughts report so that we can hear from Alice and she can answer your questions. So in order for you to participate, Alice and I are going to be quiet for a few minutes, and then we'll meet you right back here to go through that top thoughts report. You guys keep sharing and starring. While we're doing that, I'm just going to show this connections graph right here in our Discover dashboard. It really is just an illustration of the people coming in and participating in the exchange. Each purple person, of course, represents somebody participating in the exchange. The blue dialog box, of course, represents a thought that's been shared, and then each of the orange lines represents a thought that they've rated. And then, of course, you see how the priorities change of the group as they get in and rate more. So If you're still sharing and starring, I encourage you to join us back here. We, I think, are ready to dive into this top thoughts report. Alice, are you ready to hear from our attendees today?
Absolutely. This is exciting. I love this process and I'm really intrigued by it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Okay, so like I said, guys, this is the top priorities of all of our attendees, what they want to hear most about. So let's just go ahead and dive in. Do you have any favorite authors and books on leadership or entrepreneurship that you can recommend?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I have a lot. One of the books I love and I make my students at the university read is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That was written in 1936. It's an old book, but it still applies today. And there's been a couple of updates of that. But I think if you want to be entrepreneurial, and especially if you want to be a good leader, that book will help you. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is definitely for entrepreneurs to get that type of thinking going. I love Start with Why by Simon Sinek. If you are an entrepreneur and you want people to follow you and you want to build a tribe and have people who line up to buy your products, then you definitely want to read Start with Why. I think that's very, very helpful. I also love the entrepreneur myth, the E-myth, the entrepreneurial myth, or I think that the book actually says the E-myth, and that's by Michael Gerber. And that is a great book for anyone who owns a business and wants to grow it. That is very helpful. My favorite part of that book and what's stuck with me over all the years and why I still recommend it is because they talk about working on your business, not just in your business. So you may get up and go to work every day and do the things that have to be done at your job, but that's not going to get you the growth or get you to the next level. You have to pause from the daily work and you have to do the thinking, the thinking about how do we work? Is that working well? What can we change? How can we do better? How do we feel about this? How can we innovate? So that's working on your business. And as a business leader, you need to take time out frequently to think about your business and how it's working and what you can change and what you can innovate. And that's why I love that book.
That's a really great one. I think you're right. I think so often we get kind of bogged down with the tactical portion of our jobs. We don't often come up and think about it in a more strategic way. I love all of these books. You know, we have a Thoughtexchange leadership book club that we're just starting. And so these are, I feel like I'm just taking copious notes. I was like, we can just make a list of all the things you're recommending so we can dive into them in our leadership book club. So thank you for sharing those. Have you ever felt imposter syndrome? And how did it change your mindset? I love this question.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know anybody who's in business who hasn't ever felt imposter syndrome. I think that's why it has a name. I think that when you are just starting, you do have to act as if, right? So right there, you're being an imposter because you haven't been there, you haven't done that, but you have this body of knowledge that you feel that you can bring forward, and you've got to act as if, right? You've already done it, already been there. So I think that that is a bit of being an imposter on the one hand, but it's how you grow into what you want to be. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's only a problem if you have to keep doing it and keep doing it. And then really, I mean, that's not good, right? So, and people will see through it. So you can't continue with it. But when I a time that I can think of that's relevant right now is I did a lot of training of salespeople in my early days. Before that, I was a public school teacher, and of course, that's all about training, teaching, and all of that, right? And I trained graduate students as well. So I've done a lot of training in my life, but I wanted to move into being a speaker. And of course, when you're training, you are a speaker, but it's different. And so when I first started speaking, which has been many years now, but I felt like, oh my gosh, like, am I a speaker? I'm a trainer. You know, which am I, a speaker or a trainer? I'm going to impersonate a speaker. I'll be a speaker now. And so I was like, Will I be good enough? Can I do this? You know, those thoughts do run through your mind. And so when you have those thoughts that I'm an imposter, they're going to see through me. I feel like it's okay to just let people know I'm a bit new at this, or I've just started this. And so I appreciate your patience, or, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable and authentic and say, this is the first time I've done this. So I really prepared, you know. I think that the preparation is key. So if you feel like an imposter, prepare. And that will really help you with your mindset, because you will be prepared. So yes, I've had imposter syndrome.
I love that though. And I think that ties back to the advice you gave us in the first part of the interview about like constantly be learning and focusing on what knowledge you still need to have. I think that you're right. The more you're an expert on this stuff that you need to know, and the more that you've prepared for things, I think the more you'll see that imposter syndrome kind of creep in. So I love that. Thank you, Alice. I'm feeling so inspired. Did you have mentors in your career who helped push you?
Yes, I've had a lot of different mentors and coaches and people who pushed me. I think that it's important to find the right people at the right time. Over my many years, I've had so many, and for different reasons. So several years back, I felt like I did not understand finance well enough. My undergraduate degree is in elementary education. My graduate degree is in literacy. I was a teacher. I kind of fell into business. I started my first business, and it was business around education. I had no training at all in business of any kind. I went to work for Heiman, my dad and stepmom's company, and I learned a little bit about finance there, but when I started my second company, which is the company I have now, I went along for quite a while without knowing what I needed to about finance. So about 5 years ago, I really just said, you know what, I'm done. I need to learn about finance. So I got a mentor to mentor me on finance, and then I hired a virtual CFO to help me. So I powered up in that way. But over different times when I felt like I was just stuck and I needed a kick in the pants, or like, I'm not sure why I can't get ahead, I'm just feeling stuck, I've hired different life coaches to help me. One that a couple that really have been helpful. Nancy Anderson, she wrote a book called Work with Passion. I highly recommend it if you're feeling stuck or if you want to make a change. I worked with Joelle J, and she wrote The Inner Edge, which is all about self-leadership. And oh my gosh, I've probably read that book 3 times and I still go back to it. There's so many things in there that have helped me. And then working with her helped me as well. I mean, sometimes the book can mentor you, you know, you can mentor yourself, but I pay for a lot of the mentoring that I get, because I feel my own development is so important. So call it a mentor, call it a coach, call it training, whatever it is, I pay for a lot of learning and coaching and mentoring. And then I also will find someone who's already been there and done that. And like my mastermind group, some of the women in that group have already done the things that I aspire to do. And so they are willing to mentor me. I don't, you know, that's not a paid kind of mentoring. That's when we're helping each other with, well, I help them with the things I'm really good at. They help me with the things they're really good at. So if you want to find a mentor, you just need to look around and see who's already been there and done that and can help you, or ask, do you know someone who has successfully done this? Mm-hmm. Could you introduce me? And then you simply ask them, would you be willing to mentor me? And then explain what that means. Like, I'd like an hour a week of your time, or I'd like an hour a week, an hour a month, something like that. Be specific about what you need. But yes, I've had mentors and coaches and training. And of course, my parents and my grandparents were also mentors for me as well. I feel very lucky in that way.
That's so great, Alice. I think that you said something that I really want to just kind of like re-highlight, which is that, you know, books can be your mentors too. And I think when we think of the word, similar to how you have helped us redefine entrepreneurship, you know, thinking about mentors in this traditional way, you can find inspiration and mentorship in a number of different facets. And I love also, you kind of tying it back to this idea of like, if you recognize a gap in your knowledge, that you are finding an expert, even if that means paying for that expert, that's necessary in order for you to continue to grow and evolve. So I love that. That's all really great advice. What are some of the ways you overcame self-doubt or discouragement? I think that you talked about this, right? Like preparing, increasing your knowledge, or finding an expert. We're all humans, and many times we face this battle throughout our lives and careers, and would love to know some advice or experience you may have.
So I think, at different phases in your life, it's different. Again, when I'm pushing myself to learn something new and I'm really getting outside my comfort zone, sometimes I have doubt, but I've learned to very quickly turn it around. So when I was younger, I couldn't do this, and I would have doubt and I would replay things in my head and worry and wonder. I don't do that anymore. When I have a self-doubt, or I'm about to say something negative, or I do say something negative inside my head or even out loud, I catch myself immediately and I turn it around. So one of the hardest things about change is that if you want to change, you have to have something to change to. And so I taught myself through reading and mentors and, coaches and all kinds of things to reword things. So like I might say, I'm just going to give you a silly example. I have to empty the dishwasher again. Right? That's a really very negative thought. And when you think about all the people who don't even have a dishwasher, don't even have dishes, all of these things, don't even have running water. It's like, really? So I say, I get to empty the dishwasher. So the minute the thought comes to my mind, or I feel that coming, or I say it, I just take a deep breath and I smile and I say, I get to empty the dishwasher. What a pleasure that is. I have a beautiful home that has running water and a dishwasher in it. And I get to take my beautiful dishes out and put them on the shelf, which actually is very invigorating because I'm doing something while my coffee's perking, right? Yeah. And I get to do that. And how lucky am I? So I have a replacement for the negative. Wow. So whatever the negative is, if I think I can't do that, I might say, I haven't been able to do that yet, but I'm practicing so that I will. So I just replace it with something positive, and that helps. And then you might have to keep telling yourself, but also you need to prove it to yourself. Well, I can do this because I've been able to do these other things in the past. That will lend itself to me doing this now. So prove it to yourself. If you're wondering, can I do this? Then the answer is, I can do this because I have done these other things. So you really have to have some sort of replacement, some sort of strategy to get that talk in your head that might be negative to turn positive.
I love that. I think you're so right. So often we think that we get focused on the change portion. I need to change, but we're not replacing it with what you need to change to. You don't give yourself the kind of the switcheroo that you're describing. And so I think that that's so fascinating. I feel like if you can just catch yourself in that moment, and I'm sure it's like anything, any muscle you have to learn how to flex, but it becomes habit, I think, the more and more you do it. I love that. I'm certainly going to take that trick away with me, Alice. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, the first thing is just notice that you're doing it and start thinking of replacements. Yeah. And even if it's just, I can't do that yet, just add yet. And then it will just become a habit.
Yeah. There's that other book, Growth Mindset.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it reminds me of. I think that's
Dweck.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can go on, that's another book I love, Growth Mindset. There's so many. If you can kind of see behind me, that's just one bookshelf. I have 4 more over here that you can see. So if you go on Growth Mindset, Carol Dweck, go on her website, there's a quiz you can take. And you answer the questions and it tells you what type of mindset you have. And then it gives you suggestions what you can do.
I love that. Okay, good. I'm so glad we uncovered that then. Okay, we probably have time for a couple more. What are some things you do outside of work that inspire you?
Okay, so this is really important. And I'm going to tell you, I work a lot. Yeah. I work more than a lot of people, and I don't recommend it. Okay? So I'm just going to tell you. And one of the reasons I work so much is because I really love what I do and I want to do it. And then during my days, I'm so busy with clients that then in the night I'm working on writing some great content or preparing for a presentation. So I work a lot. That said, I think that if you only work, you'll never get better at your work. Now, remember I said taking time out to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it is important. And that does inspire me when I can go sit quietly somewhere and just think about my life and how is it going and what would I like to change, what would I like to keep, do more of, and I have that. That's inspiring. I read books all the time. Now I read business books, not just in my area, but I like to read science books and other kinds of business books that take me a little bit broader. And I love to read fiction because it's an escape and it pulls me away. So I'm in a book club and we read all different kinds of things, and that helps inspire me and take my mind off work. I love to sail, and when I get on my sailboat, or if we go travel somewhere and we rent a sailboat, and I just get on there and enjoy the ocean and the view and the people and the art of sailing. Completely clears my mind. I love to ski. Skiing clears my mind as well because you have to pay attention. At the level that I ski, you don't want to miss a bump because you'll be rolling down the hill. So you're going to take a challenging route and you've got to plot the route and you've got to, maneuver and make sure, try not to fall, right? So that is inspiring to me. Again, anytime I'm outside, it's inspiring, and I can see the beauty of the world and the blue sky and the trees and the grass and the people and the snow and whatever it is that I'm looking at, the ocean or the lake. Being outdoors is extremely inspiring to me. I also grow a garden, and that inspires me. I believe that everyone should grow a little bit of their own food. Even if you have a tiny apartment, you can have an indoor garden and grow a little bit of your own food. It's so much fun to include the food that you've grown yourself into a meal. So those are just a few of the things. I also do yoga. I take walks. I try to do many things to get away from work and be inspired. And I think everyone should.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Alice, for all the things that you've shared with us today. I think I speak for all of the attendees when I say that it's so lovely to hear what inspires you, but you have certainly inspired us today. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on entrepreneurship with us. And I think we're all feeling really inspired to go out and take on this new approach to our work.
Thank you. It's been really enjoyable. I love your process, and I love the way you involve the audience. This is really a fun way to get information out to everyone.
Thanks so much, Alice. As a reminder, guys, we're going to send you the recording of this event so you can share it far and wide with all of the people in your life you think would also be inspired by this. All the entrepreneurs that you know, or budding entrepreneurs. We'll also share a report from the exchange today, so be on the lookout for that email. Of course, if you want to get in touch with Alice, you can see her on Twitter or on LinkedIn, so don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, we'll see you at our next Innovative Women in Leadership virtual event. Thanks, guys.